It's 1:37 a.m. Your room is dark except for the pale glow of your phone, lighting up your face while your mind replays something you said 6 hours ago. A sentence no one else even remembers, but to you, it feels like evidence in a trial that never ends. You tell yourself to sleep, but your brain says, "Wait, let's go over it one more time." If that feels familiar, this isn't just a video you clicked. It's a mirror you didn't mean to look into. Overthinking doesn't look dramatic from the outside. No one sees the mental tabs open in your head, the imaginary conversations, the silent rehearsals, the emotional autopsies of tiny moments. From the outside, you're just quiet. Maybe thoughtful. Maybe too sensitive. Maybe in your head a lot. But inside, it's loud. A single unread message can sit in your chest like a question you're afraid to answer. A short reply from someone you care about can turn into a full emotional investigation. Are they mad? Did I say too much? Did I say too little? You scroll back through the conversation like a detective searching for a clue that probably doesn't exist. Do you ever notice how your mind fills silence with stories, and most of them aren't kind? Overthinking isn't about thinking too much. It's about feeling too deeply in a world that moves too fast to slow down and explain itself. Your brain tries to protect you by predicting outcomes, reading between lines, preparing for emotional impact before it happens. It's not weakness. It's hyper-awareness without a volume control. That quiet strength we talked about in the last video. The depth, the observation, the ability to notice things others miss. This is the other side of it. When a mind is built to see subtle emotional shifts, it also sees danger in places that were never meant to be threats. A sigh becomes disapproval. A pause becomes rejection. A delayed reply becomes distance. And the hardest part, you usually don't say any of this out loud. So you smile, you nod, you act normal, while inside you're negotiating with thoughts that won't sit still. You replay how you walked into a room, how your voice sounded, whether your joke landed wrong. You remember someone's facial expression in high definition, long after they've forgotten the moment ever happened. Have you ever left a conversation and felt physically exhausted? Not because it was hard, but because your mind never stopped analyzing it. Overthinkers often grow up learning to read rooms before they enter them, to sense moods, to adjust, to make sure no one is uncomfortable, especially if that someone might be upset with them. Somewhere along the way, your brain learned that safety comes from anticipation. If I can see it coming, it won't hurt as much. If I understand everything, I'll be okay. But emotions don't work like math. There's no final answer, no clean solution. So your mind keeps working and working, long after the moment has passed. That's why nights are the hardest. The world gets quiet, distractions fade, and suddenly every unfinished emotional thread comes back online. Your brain opens old files that look someone gave you last week. The tone in your friend's voice, the opportunity you didn't take, the message you haven't sent. Your body is tired. Your mind is wide awake. And the strange thing is, you're not trying to be negative. You're trying to understand, to prepare, to get it right next time. But overthinking rarely brings clarity. It brings more branches, more what ifs, more alternate endings to stories that never needed rewrites. Still, there's a reason your mind does this. Overthinking is often a form of emotional responsibility that went too far. You don't just care about what happens. You care about why, how, and what it meant to everyone involved. You carry emotional weight that was never officially handed to you. You feel responsible for the vibe, for the tone, for the invisible atmosphere in the room. And when something feels off, even slightly, your mind goes to work trying to fix it. Even if the only tool you have is silent rumination. Remember that idea from the last video about quiet minds holding entire inner worlds no one sees? This is part of that world. Not just imagination or creativity, but emotional processing happening in private, without witnesses. And because no one sees it, no one tells you when you're being too hard on yourself, so you become your own critic, your own analyst, your own late-night commentator. You think you're searching for answers, but sometimes you're just searching for relief. Have you noticed how rarely overthinking is about the present moment? It's usually about the past, replaying, or the future, rehearsing. The now feels almost unreachable, like your mind is always one step ahead or 10 steps behind, but rarely here. That's not because you're broken. It's because your brain learned that staying mentally ahead might prevent emotional pain. But the cost is constant tension. A nervous system that never fully powers down. Even in calm moments, there's a quiet scanning in the background. A low hum of, is everything okay? Is everyone okay? Am I okay? And yet, the same mind that spirals is the mind that notices beauty others miss. The way light hits a wall in the morning. The tone shift in someone's voice that tells you they're not really fine. The meaning behind small gestures. Depth and doubt share the same roots. The question isn't how to stop thinking. That's like asking the ocean to stop moving. The real shift begins somewhere subtler, almost invisible, in how much you believe every thought deserves your full attention. Because not every mental alarm is a real emergency, and not every silence is a problem waiting to be solved. But that realization doesn't arrive all at once. It shows up in small moments, like catching yourself mid-spiral and pausing, not to shut the thought down, but to notice it. To see the pattern instead of getting pulled under by it. And maybe that's where things start to change. Not when the thoughts disappear, but when you begin to see that the voice narrating worst-case scenarios isn't always telling the truth. It's just trying, in its own exhausting way, to keep you safe from feelings you've already survived before. You notice things other people don't. The shift in someone's tone that lasts half a second. The pause before they answer. The way their smile doesn't quite reach their eyes. Most people let those details pass like background noise, but your mind catches them, zooms in, and quietly saves them for later. At first, this feels like a gift. You're perceptive, emotionally tuned in. You can sense when something's off before anyone says a word. You know how to adjust, how to soften your voice, how to change the subject, how to become whatever the moment seems to need. But somewhere along the way, that awareness stops being just awareness. It becomes surveillance. Your brain doesn't just notice the room, it monitors it, tracks it, interprets it. And slowly, almost invisibly, the focus shifts from understanding others to evaluating yourself inside every interaction. Did that sound rude? Did I talk too much? Did they look bored when I was speaking? Awareness turns inward, sharp and relentless. What once helped you connect now keeps you under a microscope no one else is holding. You start entering conversations already split in two. One part of you is present, talking, listening, reacting. The other part is slightly above the moment, watching you perform, scoring your words, predicting how they're landing. It's like living with a live commentary track, running behind every experience. Do you ever leave a completely normal interaction feeling like you just took a test you didn't study for? This is what happens when awareness loses its anchor. Instead of being rooted in curiosity, it becomes tangled with fear. Not dramatic fear, not panic, but the quiet, persistent worry of getting something wrong, of being misunderstood, of accidentally pushing someone away. Your mind starts scanning for tiny signs of emotional danger, even when none is actually there. A delayed reply feels loaded. A neutral expression feels negative. A short answer feels personal. You don't just experience moments, you interpret them, layer them with meaning, build silent stories around them. And because you're good at reading nuance, those stories feel convincing. That's the trap. High awareness gives you access to subtle emotional data, but it doesn't automatically give you accurate conclusions. Still, your brain treats every perception like evidence. You felt a shift, so something must be wrong. You sense distance, so you must have caused it. Have you noticed how rarely your mind assumes the most harmless explanation first? Awareness without emotional safety turns into hypervigilance. You're not just noticing life. You're bracing for impact. Even in calm situations, there's a low-level readiness, like you're waiting for a moment that will confirm your unspoken fear, that you're too much or not enough, or somehow slightly off in ways other people can see. So you adjust constantly. You soften opinions before sharing them. You rehearse texts before sending them. You reread messages for tone, adding emojis not because you feel playful, but because you want to make sure you don't sound cold. You shape yourself in small, almost invisible ways to prevent emotional missteps that might never have happened. And the exhausting part is, most of this happens automatically. You don't wake up deciding to overanalyze your friends. Okay. Your mind just does it. It pulls the word apart, checks the punctuation, compares it to past messages, searches for patterns. All in the background while you're trying to go about your day. Awareness has become a full-time job your brain never clocks out of. There's also a strange loneliness in this, because from the outside you seem calm, thoughtful, maybe even emotionally stable. No one sees the mental effort it takes to maintain that steadiness. No one hears the constant internal questioning, the quiet corrections, the emotional calculations running beneath simple moments. You laugh at the joke, but inside you're checking if your laugh sounded natural. You share a story, but part of you is already wondering if you overshared. You sit in silence with someone, and instead of relaxing, your mind asks, is this comfortable silence or awkward silence? The very skill that helps you read emotional environments starts disconnecting you from your own. You become so focused on how things are being received that you lose track of how they actually feel to you. Awareness turns against you when it forgets to include you in the equation. You sense everyone else's comfort levels, moods, expectations. But your own reactions get pushed to the background. You override your instincts to maintain harmony. You swallow small discomforts because they seem easier to manage than the possibility of being seen as difficult. Over time, this creates a quiet inner tension. You're always slightly adjusted, slightly edited, slightly filtered, not fake, just managed. And the mind that notices everything outside rarely pauses to ask what's happening inside. What do I actually feel right now? What do I want in this moment, if I'm not trying to control the outcome? Those questions can feel strangely hard to answer, because awareness has been trained outward for so long that turning it inward feels unfamiliar, almost unsafe. If you stop scanning the environment, even briefly, there's a subtle fear that you'll miss something important. A shift, a signal, a sign you should have caught. So the monitoring continues. But here's the quiet twist. The same awareness that fuels overthinking is also the doorway out of it. The problem isn't that you notice too much. It's that you've learned to trust your interpretations more than your own emotional resilience. Your mind believes that if it can just analyze everything perfectly, it can prevent pain, rejection, embarrassment, loss. But life doesn't move according to perfect analysis. People have moods that have nothing to do with you. Conversations land differently than expected. Silences mean 100 different things. Awareness can't control that. And slowly, gently, there's a different use for that same perceptive mind. Not to predict every outcome, not to correct every word, but to notice the moment you start spiraling, to see the pattern forming in real time, to recognize the familiar tightening in your chest, the mental replay beginning to loop. Not to fight it, just to see it happening. You tell yourself you just want to understand what's going on. That's how it starts. A small shift in someone's energy. A message that feels shorter than usual. A plan that changes at the last minute. Nothing dramatic. Nothing clearly wrong. But inside something tightens. Like your mind just picked up a signal your body can't ignore. So you start thinking. Not in a loud, frantic way. In a focused, almost responsible way. You replay the last conversation. You scan for clues. You analyze tone, timing, word choice. You remind yourself you're just being thoughtful, just trying to stay emotionally aware, just making sure everything's okay. But beneath that effort is a quiet belief you rarely say out loud. If I can figure this out, I can control how it ends. That belief feels logical, safe even, because uncertainty is uncomfortable, and your mind hates emotional loose ends. So it tries to turn feelings into puzzles, relationships into equations, human behavior into something predictable. If they sounded distant, there must be a reason. If I find the reason, I can fix it. If I fix it, I won't lose them. It sounds like care, and it is care. But it's also fear wearing the mask of responsibility. This is the illusion of emotional control, the idea that if you think deeply enough, anticipate thoroughly enough, adjust carefully enough, you can prevent misunderstandings, rejection, conflict, or loss. That you can manage other people's feelings by managing your own behavior with extreme precision. Have you noticed how much time you spend trying to get things just right, emotionally? You reread messages before sending them, editing tone that no one else would question. You add softeners, disclaimers, extra warmth, just in case. You hesitate before bringing up something that bothered you, calculating the least disruptive wording. You imagine different reactions in advance and prepare responses for each one, like emotional contingency plans. All of this effort is your mind trying to reduce risk. Because at some point, maybe long ago, unpredictability felt dangerous. Maybe someone's mood changed without warning. Maybe conflict led to distance. Maybe expressing the wrong thing had consequences that lingered. So your brain adapted. It learned that staying mentally ahead might keep you emotionally safe. The problem is, relationships aren't systems you can engineer. No amount of overthinking can guarantee how someone will feel on a random Tuesday. No perfect phrasing can fully protect you from being misunderstood. No level of emotional preparation can eliminate vulnerability, because connection itself requires a kind of uncertainty your mind is constantly trying to erase. Still, the illusion is hard to let go of. Because when you're analyzing, you feel active, engaged, responsible. It feels better than sitting with the raw discomfort of not knowing. Thinking gives you the sense that you're doing something, even if that something is just running mental simulations at midnight while staring at the ceiling. Your brain whispers, "Don't relax yet. You haven't figured it out." And so you stay alert. You monitor small changes in people's behavior like they're early warning signs. A slightly delayed response becomes data. A canceled plan becomes a pattern. A quiet moment becomes a question mark your mind can't leave alone. You're not trying to control people in an obvious way. You're trying to control outcomes by controlling yourself. Be easier. Be clearer. Be more understanding. Be less needy. Be less much. If I show up perfectly, nothing will go wrong. But perfection is a moving target, and emotional safety built on performance is fragile. Because no matter how carefully you adjust, you can't fully manage how someone else experiences their own life, stress, history, or feelings. And when something does go wrong, when someone pulls away, misunderstands you, or reacts in a way you didn't predict, your mind doesn't say, "Some things are out of my control." It says, "I must have missed something." So you go back through the footage. You replay conversations like security tapes, looking for the moment you could have handled differently. You rewrite sentences in your head. You imagine alternate versions of yourself who said the perfect thing at the perfect time and prevented this outcome entirely. Do you see how heavy that makes every interaction feel? When emotional control becomes the goal, connection stops feeling spontaneous. Every word carries weight. Every silence needs interpretation. You're not just relating, you're managing variables, trying to keep the emotional climate stable at all times. And it's exhausting. Because humans aren't stable climates. They're weather systems. They have internal storms that have nothing to do with you. They get quiet for reasons they don't explain. They change their minds. They feel things they can't articulate. They react from old wounds you can't see. Your awareness picks up the shift, but your mind assumes responsibility for fixing it. The illusion says, if I understand it well enough, I can prevent the pain. But often, the pain you're trying to prevent is the simple, human discomfort of not being able to control how everything unfolds, of letting someone have their own emotional process without turning it into your personal project to solve. Letting go of emotional control doesn't mean not caring. It means allowing space between what you feel and what you try to manage. It means noticing the urge to overanalyze and recognizing it as a reflex, not a requirement. It means sitting with a delayed reply and allowing the possibility that it's just a delayed reply. It means letting a conversation end imperfectly without mentally chasing it for hours, trying to smooth edges that only exist in your imagination. And that can feel terrifying at first, because without overthinking there's a sense of free fall. No mental grip, no predictive script, just the raw experience of being in a relationship where not everything is knowable in advance. Your mind might say this is careless, naive, risky. But there's another possibility your thoughts rarely consider. That you're more emotionally resilient than your overthinking gives you credit for. That you've survived misunderstandings before. That you can handle a moment of distance without dissecting it from every angle.